I'm just finishing setting up real quick. If you can hear me, can you send me a message in the chat? Make sure you can hear me clearly. And we also are just posting this article in the chat. So let me know if you can see that article or that link. Okay, can you hear me? Can somebody hear me? Can you send me a message? And we're just setting up right quick. I have a couple of things I'm working. Type it in here. And we're going to start in a couple of minutes. Well, some of the viewers who just joined, send me a message in the chat just so you can let me know you can hear me clearly. And we're going to get started in a couple of minutes. And the article that we're focused on, we just posted that in the chat, so let me know if you can see that link. And we're just sending out a message right quick on Facebook, and then we're going to start. And if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat now and throughout the presentation. If you have any questions from the previous session. All right. Okay. Ichiamo. Medinde, Odwirafo, Kwesi, Nehem, Ptah, Akan, and AKANFO, NANASOM, Da, which means ancient, authentic Akan, ancestral religion. That's AKANFO, NANASOM. We are in our 9th installment of the Akradin Abosom series. So the Akradin Abosom, of course, are the Abosom, or the divinities in Akan culture that govern the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies that govern the Akan 7-day week. So we have so far covered Awusi, Ajua, Abena, Bena, Awuku, Akua, Yao, and Ya. And today we will be covering Aaba. So are there any questions about the previous session dealing with Ya? Type them in on the send me a message in the chat. You do have to be logged in order to submit a question, to make comments in the chat. But are there any questions about that previous session? Let's see. All right. Okay, so we're going to move forward. Today we're going to be talking about Aaba. Now, Aaba is an Abosom. She governs Yauda, which is also called Yada, which is also called Aabada, which we call Aabada. This is in English called Thursday. So Aaba is the Abosom, the female Abosom. Her planetary home, the Ochin Nsoroma, or the planet that she governs, is Aaba, which in English is called the planet Neptune. And that planet is a twin of the planet that we call Ya, which in English is called Uranus. So Uranus and Neptune we call Ya and Aaba. in Akan culture. This is the planetary home of the Obosom Aaba, Neptune. Now, she also operates in connection with the Abosom Yao and her twin sister Ya through the planet Ya, which is also called Ya, which in English is called Jupiter. And we'll get into that as well. But her primary planetary home is Aaba, which is called Neptune. She governs Aabada, so children who are born on Aabada or Yauda or Yada, who are governed by this particular Abosom, they are called Aaba. People born on Thursday, the male can be called Kwao, but also Yao. Females are called Ya, but they're also called Aaba. Hold on one second, did I see a question? Okay, no. Let me check something real quick. I'm looking at the quality of the video was kind of choppy. Hold on one second. Okay, so we'll see how it gets. So children will be called male Kwao or Yao, females Ya, Aba, Ayawa, Ayaba, different variations. And then there are Mrane, or praise names that are connected with the Akradin, the soul names. So the planet is Aaba Neptune. This Abosom, this female Abosom, she is a guardian. She's a protectress of divine sovereignty, along with her twin sister Ya. She's a guardian, striker. She relentlessly challenges disorder, just like her twin sister. That same energy that governs that particular day, that particular force in nature. So they are twins in that respect. She's an Abosom of resistance and punishment. So she wages war, punishes, protects divine sovereignty, independence. Along with her sister Ya, she governs the magnetosphere. The magnetosphere is basically the electromagnetic field that surrounds Asase Afuya, which is the Earth Mother. It's the same. We have an electromagnetic field or magnetosphere that surrounds our bodies, which the outer reaches of that is what people typically call the aura. And of course, in the great divine body of Inyame wa Inyame, the Supreme Being, the Great Mother and the Great Father, the divine magnetosphere within that great divine body is the domain of Ya and Aba, those two female twin divinities. And of course, since we're children of the great divine Mother and Father, and our bodies are cells within the great divine body, just like they govern the magnetosphere and the great divine body, they govern the magnetosphere around the Earth Mother, and then they govern the magnetosphere around the Afurai Kaitni human body. So now we're going to get into her major title, Aaba. Now in the Akan language, there are two definitions of Aaba. One is like a stick or a cudgel used to strike or to beat, for a beating, to strike or to blow. But then Ba or Aaba also means to open or to extend. Now those are the two meanings of Aaba or Baba in the Akan language. In the language of ancient Kamit and Kamit, you have the same term with the same two meanings. To strike, to blow, to attack, a stick used to strike or to beat or to make a blow. But then you also have to extend, to open, also to dig a hole, but to open in the sense of digging a hole, to open wings, like with respect to a bird, and so forth. So the same term, Aba or Ba, meaning just a stick used for striking or a blow or attacking or beating, and also the meaning for extending or to open. Those same two meanings in Akan are the same two meanings that you find in ancient Kamit. So we show in the article the various depictions of that term, both meanings, in two separate columns, variations of the term Aba, Ba, Baba, with those two definitions. And so you see that is a direct connection genetically, linguistically, from ancient Kamit to Akan culture, in contemporary times. Now, this is important because typically, with regard to the Akradinbosom, two things happen. On one hand, because of the infection of Islam, Christianity, over the past few hundred years, and as well as especially with Islam over the past 1,000 years with respect to Akan people and people in West Africa in general, we have often transmitted an infected culture. So the culture that is being transmitted today by many of the elders and elderesses on the continent, as well as people here who have embraced ancestral religion, whether it's Akan, Yoruba, Igbo, Bodun, whatever it is, we often get some form of an infected culture. We talked about previously, if somebody says, listen, I went to the continent, I've been studying under traditional elders who have been raised in the culture, and they come from a number of generations of, spiritual practitioners who go back from time immemorial. They have multiple generations of culture and practice. So if we said before, if you say a generation on average is 25 years, well, 10 generations is 250 years. 40 generations is 1,000 years. So going back 40 generations, if you went and saw a priest or a priestess or an elder or elderess on the continent, and you ask them how long have they been living in this part of the world and practicing their culture, they'll say, well, for 10, 20, 30, 40 generations back, we've been practicing this culture. As far back as we can remember, this is how we've practiced. Well, 40 generations back, to us, that's a very long time, because here in America, we can hardly, learn about 5 generations or 6. It's a big deal if somebody knows 7 generations of their family. If they go back to the mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, if we can go back to great, 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 it's a big deal. Imagine going back 40 generations. That's a very long time, it appears, but when we're talking about ancient culture and trustery, 40 generations or 1,000 years is still modern. That's a drop in the bucket with respect to the length of time that we've been practicing the culture. So if they say they can go back, multiple generations, well, 40 generations only takes you back 1,000 years. 1,000 years ago, Akan people who had established the ancient empire of Akana or Ghana, many of them began to migrate south from that empire because of the perversion and the degradation of society, mainly because of Muslim invasions and just the disruption of society. And some of our people saw that some of our people were being corrupted, and after a while some of our people said, hey, we're going to migrate south and reestablish our civilization because these fools are, just becoming corrupt. So some of us did that, and that began around 1,000 years ago, give or take, a few, like 100 years or so. So we began to migrate incrementally and reestablish civilization, first in the savannah area in Ghana, and then later also in Ivory Coast, in Ghana, northern Ghana, moving into central and southern and western and eastern Ghana and so forth. So, but going back 1,000 years, that just takes you back to when the society was being overrun and invaded by Muslims. So if somebody says they have, 40, 50 generations of, practice, that just takes you back to the time when the culture was being corrupted. There's a lot of evidence to that fact just based on the way the culture is being practiced today. The Akradinbosom, the whole notion of Akradinbosom, that manifests that infection, because on one hand, some people don't even recognize, as we mentioned before, that there are actually Abosom that govern the 7 days of the week, the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies that govern the 7-day week. And those who, the percentage who do, often they don't know who these Abosom are, they don't actively deal with them. But then there are some who, who acknowledge the fact that there are Abosom. They know the basic 7 names of these Abosom very often because they have been studying and repeating what on one hand white ethnologists wrote about 100 years ago or 200 years ago, when they were talking about the Abosom, and sometimes what some of the black writers, as well as people in the culture, have just continued to acknowledge in a limited fashion based on what white ethnologists and others were talking about 100 years ago or 200 years ago. So the whole practice of dealing, focusing on the Akradinbosom, that's not prevalent in Ghana. It's not prevalent as it should be in Cote d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast. So what happens is, for the people who don't know anything about the Abosom that govern the 7 days, they just think they have day names and they're just named after the days and have characteristics. For those who do know something about them, they only know about the major 7 that are typically listed in different books, different publications, repetition of what was being published 100 years ago or 200 years ago, or what was passed down and focused on by succeeding generations, but they weren't focused on the culture because the culture had been infected first by Mohammedanism, Islam, and then later, about 200 years ago, and moving forward with Christianity. And then, of course, there were other influences, Hinduism and Buddhism and different perversions that came in later as more people began to migrate into Ghana. So what happens is, you deal, at most you have the 7 Akradinbosom: Awusi, Adwa, Bena, Awuku, Yao, Afi, and Amen. But in reality, as we said last week, there are 4 additional Akradinbosom. They're not additional in the sense that they're new. These are the same Abosom that we have been worshiping, invoking for thousands of years, but since some people have not focused on them because of the infection of the culture, is not passed down. And those 4 additional Abosom, Akradinbosom, are Ya and Aba and Akua and Abena. Now, what we have done is brought the information out about all 11 Akradinbosom, including those 4 that most people don't deal with, and there are 2 primary ways to do that. The first and foremost is dealing directly with these Akradinbosom, communicating directly with the Akradinbosom, invoking the Akradinbosom, and they give us information about who they are. Any Akan person can do this, and any Afurakani, Afurakaitni person can do this, because we're going to get into the different titles of these Abosom, these forces in nature, in different parts, of West Afuraka, Afuraikai. So the first part of the process is to communicate directly with Akua, to communicate directly with Ya and Aba, to communicate directly with Abena. That's how you get direct experience and learn of who these Abosom are, in connection with your Kra, with your Okra, with your divine consciousness, your soul. Now, and also you deal with the NANASOM and Samapo, your honorable ancestresses and ancestors, those spiritually cultivated honorable ancestresses and ancestors, of course, who dealt with these Abosom when they were living on earth, and they transmit information directly connected to these Abosom because they are in connection with them as well, and it is part of their duty and responsibility as honorable NANASOM to give us this information, to confirm this information, and then guide us to published information published by our own ancestresses and ancestors about these divinities, to prove that these divinities are the same divinities that we've been talking about for thousands of years. So first we communicate directly with the Abosom. They give us the information, but if we want to convey details about the information beyond just our personal experiences, then the NANASOM and Samanfo will give us information, give us experiences, and then they will guide us and direct us to proof of who these Abosom are directly from the hands of our NANASOM and Samanfo who have published information. We published the most extensive record of Afurakani, Afurakaitni and ancestral religion anywhere in the world. In fact, it's the most extensive record of real religion, period, anywhere on earth. In ancient Kamit, ancient Kamit, in the Meru, the pyramids, in the Peru, Ankh, in the temples, on the Chefdu and on the papyri, of course in the coffin text, on stelae and different things. We have published thousands and thousands and thousands of inscriptions, of prayers, of ceremony, ritual practices, and so forth that are still carved in stone, that are still painted on chef d'oeuvre papyri, and so forth. So we can see these abosom, we can see their names, their functions in nature, their ritual colors, how they operate with respect to us, how they interact with one another, what their relationships are with one another, and so forth. And therefore, we not only have the direct experience with the abosom, but we also have direct written, published information from thousands of years ago that line up directly with our experiences and also with the language and culture that we still have today. So the language and culture of ancient Kamit and ancient Kamit, you'll find the same terms, you'll find the same descriptive titles, you'll find the same names of abosom, the same ritual colors, the same ritual practices, and so forth from ancient Kamit to the contemporary languages now. So this is how we gather that kind of information, and then we convey that information. We have done that, of course, with the Akradinbosom in general, but also the information that we have with respect to Ya, Aaba, Akua, and Abena. Now, just as we said before, Akua is actually Nekhebet, Abena is Sekhmet, Ya is Wachet from ancient Kamit, and Aaba is Nekhebet. So, and in the other languages, for example, in the Yoruba tradition, Nekhebet or Aaba is Oba, which is the first wife of Shango. And in the Vodun tradition, in Nkron and Dahomey, ancient Dahomey, the same Vodou, the same Abosom, the Vodou, the divinity, is called Ayaba. So Ayaba in Vodou, Oba in Yoruba, and Aaba in Akan. Aaba has a variation on Akan, which is also Ayaba. So you can have Aaba or Ayaba in Akan, Ayaba in Nkron, and Oba, which is Aaba, in the Yoruba tradition. So let's get into some of her characteristics. Now, we talked about the Medutu, we talked about her, and you'll see in the article, and we posted the article, you'll see the different variations in the Medutu, a number of different variations of the term Aaba, meaning the exact same thing in the Medutu, in the hieroglyphics writing, that it does in Akan culture. Now, you'll find that on the crown of the Ptah, and also the crown of the Queen Mother, you will find often, and different divinities, different abosom, male and female, you will often find that we have the cobra, the fire-spitting cobra, in connection with the vulture. The fire-spitting cobra is Wachet, which is Ya, and then the vulture is Nekhebet, which is Aaba. Sometimes instead of the vulture, they will have another cobra. So they'll have two cobras. We have a couple of pictures of that in the article as well. So sometimes Wachet and Nekhebet are depicted as two fire-spitting cobras who protect the king, protect the Queen Mother, protect the divinities like Ra and Rahet and Tefnut and Sekhmet. And Mentu very often has a dual cobras. The kings and queen mothers of ancient Kamit or Nubia often wear the dual cobras and so forth. Queen mothers often wear the vulture headdress, and it's not just the vulture head, but it's also the whole vulture headdress, including the feathers and the tail and so forth, and only the mothers wear that crown. So you'll see both of them. You'll see Aaba and Wachet sometimes depicted as cobras, but they also have wings. So they're winged cobras. Now, that whole process is dealing with the energy of the magnetosphere. The magnetosphere is an electromagnetic field surrounding the Asase Afuya and, of course, surrounding your body. Now, the electromagnetic field, when it's in connection with the electromagnetic energy that's coming from the Aten, from the sun, and of course the earth is revolving around its axis, the two poles, the negative and positive poles, And as it's revolving around its axis, it's also revolving around the Aten. And the Aten, the sun, when it's sending its energy out, it affects directly the revolution of the earth. It affects the jet stream that moves around the earth. That electromagnetic field has a direct effect on the jet stream. And when the jet stream moves around the earth, of course, that affects the weather of the earth, the winds, and so forth. So when they talk about Ya and Aba in connection with the wind, and you'll see them with wings, you also see Aba, Mut. She's depicted as Mut, as the vulture. That's the title of the vulture, Mut. Mut means mother. It also means vulture. So you'll see her with expansive wings. Her wings protect, and you see the wings around the Ptah, the pharaoh, or the queen mother as a protective stance. Ba or Aba again means to extend or to open, like wings extending or opening. So she's the protectress in that sense, as we said before, of divine sovereignty. So you'll see their wings opening, and then when you look at the magnetosphere, just like the earth has a magnetosphere, your body has a magnetosphere. As the energy moving through your system circulates through your magnetosphere, through your atmosphere, it also affects the wind inside of you. Just like we have a jet stream that moves around the earth, of course, we take in wind as well, and that circulates through our bodies. When we take in the wind, meaning the air, it goes into our nostrils, it gets into our two lungs. When you look, and we have a picture of the lungs, the image of the lungs, and the inside you'll see that there are bronchial tubes within the lungs. Those bronchial tubes, of course, process the wind. And when that wind is brought in, then the oxygen is brought in, and then the oxygen penetrates in connection with the heart, the blood, and then the blood can pump and send, oxygen to all cells in the body. In that sense, Yao or Heru operates through the heart, and then you have Wachet and Nekhebet operating through the lungs, through the bronchial tubes, where the wind comes in, where the electromagnetic energy of the wind circulates and is drawn into your body. So you have Wachet, Nekhebet, and Heru, or you have Ya and Aba and Ya. Or in the Yoruba tradition, you have Shango, and then Oya and Oba. Of course, Oba and Oya, two wives of Shango, and then Shango is the king. So Ya, Ya, and Aba are the same divinities, and of course in Vodun you have Avejida, which is Ya, you have Ayaba, which is Aba, and then you have Hedioso, or So, which is Heru, the king. So you have those, and we have those images as well in the article. So you have those different divinities working together, the same heart and lung complex that we have, they operate through that same process. Now, when we look at, we have a picture of, in the article of, well, first, Nekhebet is also a vulture, and they also often show her, excuse me, they often show her and with pendulous breasts. Now, it's not just in the sense of her being the great mother who suckles the king or the queen mother, which is part of it, and they show her as Mut, the vulture, which means mother. That's the etymological origin of the term mother, which, suckles and nurses and protects the king, the young prince, the princess, and so forth. Part of her title as like Nekhebet, Nekheb, Nekha, means her, she of the pendulous breast. So they show her with hanging breasts like an elder mother. Now, if you look in the same region, and we show in images of this in the article, you will see that we have a picture of the nipples of the male and female. We have a picture of a battery, then we have a picture of a couple of Adinkra symbols, and then a picture of an eye. Now, the reason why we put that there, and we go into detail about it in the article, is the reason that they're connected. Nekhebet is connected with the breasts, is because if you look at the two nipples, they're directly connected with the lungs. The nipples have a primary function and a secondary function. just like your eyes. Your eyes, of course, your primary function of the eyes is to see. Their secondary function is to transmit electromagnetic energy. You can transmit energy. If you stare at someone, or you can feel someone staring at you, it's not just because they're trying to burn, you know, a hole in your face and they're trying to stare you down, but when people stare at you, they're emanating electromagnetic energy through space, and you can feel that transmission. You receive it and you can feel it. So that's the secondary function. Of course, the primary function is to see. Your nose has two major functions. It has a primary function and a secondary function. Primary function, of course, is to breathe. Secondary function is to smell, your sense of smell. So it has primary functions. Your mouth has primary and secondary functions. Of course, you have to taste, the sense of taste coming through the mouth and the taste buds and so forth, but also to speak, but also to take in air as well, to breathe. Your ears have primary and secondary functions, of course, to hear, but then you also have your sense, the organs within your ears that maintain your equilibrium, your balance, and that's another function of the ears. It's the same thing with regard to different aspects of our being, which includes the nipples. The primary function of the nipples is not suckling and breast milk and so forth. That's a secondary function. The primary function of the nipples in connection with Aaba, Nekhebet, these are two poles, the positive and negative pole of electromagnetic energy. They're directly over the lung-heart complex because that electromagnetic energy stimulates the bronchial tubes, and the air, electromagnetic energy moving through the air that comes into the bronchial tubes stimulates the lungs, stimulates the heart, and so forth. We understand just in our common experience, electromagnetic energy is directly related to the heart and the lung complex. We know it's connected to the nervous system in general. We know our nervous system runs off of electric impulses. We know that you can rub your feet on the carpet and touch somebody or touch a doorknob and shock somebody. That's electromagnetic energy. We also understand that if somebody is going through a cardiac arrest and paramedics come or they're rushed to the hospital, the physician will take two electric pads, put the pads together, rub them, say clear, put the pads on the person's chest, and send an electric shock to jumpstart the system, to jumpstart the nervous system, to jumpstart the heart. Electromagnetic energy is directly related to the nervous system, but also to the palpitation of the heart and the lung complex. So you have these two poles, the positive pole and the negative pole, just like a 9-volt battery. Positive and negative poles that are directly related to the lung complex, directly related to Ya and Aaba, Wachet and Nekhebet, Oya and Oba, Abejida and Ayaba. That's what primary function is. The secondary function, of course, is there a certain period of the life of a female, for a certain number of years, around beginning with the 15th year up until about the 45th or 50th year in their life, a certain percentage of their life, maybe about half to less than half or more than half, depending on the person's lifespan, that the secondary function of the nipples is prominent because they can breastfeed. But prior to that period and after that period, the breasts are not used for that. They're used for and throughout that period as well, they're used for their primary function, but then they also can be used for the secondary function. But their primary function is electromagnetic, and it's directly related to these abosom. Now, of course, as a sidebar, that's very important because there's a lot of information that's being promoted, like on Facebook and online, about foolishness, like the black woman is God, and the nipples of the male are just atrophied breasts, and originally we were hermaphrodites, and all kinds of foolishness that comes directly from the whites and their offspring. And of course the whites and their offspring know it's not true, but they want to, of course, give us this foolish idea of, on one hand, they teach us white male supremacy, On the other hand, they teach us white female supremacy, and some of our people who have low self-esteem, beyond the people who are deliberately lying to our people, Negroes who work on behalf of the whites and their offspring, but Negroes who have low self-esteem or just people who have misinformation. They take that information, they blacken it up, they try to retroactively date it to our ancient, cultures, and say this is what our people were teaching. And of course, our people were never teaching foolishness like that, because it's not accurate. But when you have a direct connection with the Abosom, a direct connection with the NANASOM and Samafo, you cut that kind of information down instantly. You know there's more to it than what the whites and their offspring have said. Most people who have studied that kind of false information never took the time to listen to Aaba, listen to Nekhebet, listen to Wachet. Why is Nekhebet depicted as the Abosom with the pendulous breast? Why is it connected to the chest? Why is she connected to why does she have the great wings? Why is it connected to the expansion and contraction of the breath in our bodies? Why is she the twin sister of Wachet? What is their connection? So because people haven't done that, they just, kind of listen to what is popular and then they run with it. So we say all that to say that's the connection with Nekhebet and Wachet, with the pendulous breast, the Nekha, which is the root of Nekheb, and Nekhebet, which talks about the pendulous breast as well as her, her other titles. Now, she also is connected with the plant of the south, which is the Shema, which is the blue lotus, whereas Wachet is connected with the papyrus plant, and it is called Watch, or the green one, and she's called Wachet, or the green one. So that deals with two separate things. On one hand, you have Wachet, the green one. She operates through the planet Wachet, which is the greenish planet, which is of course Uranus, or Uranus in English. Then you have Aaba, or Nekhebet, whose sacred color is blue. She operates through that blue Shema, or the fully flowered lotus, the Nekheb plant, the plant of the south, the blue lotus with the yellow interior. When it opens up, the yellow is on the inside, and that's like opening up in the morning, and then the sun rising up out of the lotus at the beginning of the world. So she's connected with that blue plant, that sacred color, but she also is connected with, of course, her planetary home, which is Aaba, Nekhebet, which takes on that bluish color. So you have the green one, Wachet, and the blue one, Nekhebet. And their planets are the greenish and the bluish planets. They are the two planets who are twins, twin gas giants, the two planets that operate around the circumference of our solar system. They prescribe the perimeter and the circumference of the solar system. They are at the edge of the solar system. Now, and of course, Pluto is not regarded as a true planet. So just like they operate at the perimeter of the solar system and prescribe the circumference of the solar system, just like your aura prescribes the circumference of your being. And Nekhebet and Wachet, Yah and Aaba, govern the aura, radiating the energy from the electromagnetic energy. When you pull it in through the breath, it radiates through the lungs as you're expanding and contracting. You're emanating that electromagnetic energy that develops and shapes and enriches what we call the kahibit, or your auric egg. So they operate through those two planets. They operate through the two poles. There's poles here, the eastern and western poles, and then the northern and southern poles at the head and in the reproductive area. And we're going to get into those poles in the next two sessions. So those two gas giants are their planetary homes. Also, with regard to the air, we show a picture of the Smai Tawi in ancient Kamit. It's basically the picture of a sternum, the trachea, and then the lungs, and then you have the plant of the south and the plant of the north. You have the papyrus plant, the watch plant, and then you have the Shema, or the Nekheb plant of the south, and they're tied together around the trachea symbol. It's the trachea and the lung symbol, and that's called the Smai Tawi, or the union of the two lands. Now, of course, like we said last week, Smai Tawi, or the union of the two lands, does not mean yoga. Of course, that information has been promoted falsely. We have an article about ANKH, the origin of the term yoga, where we go into detail about that. We also have the article Karakasa, the origin and nature of the chakras, where we go into more detail. But the Smai Tawi is a union of the two lands. Smai means to unite, to join, and Ta means land, and Tawi means the two lands. The two lands on one hand is Kamit and Kanit. Ancient Kamit, ancient Egypt, of course, and ancient Kanit or Nubia. But then also later, it was focused on northern Kamit and southern Kamit, or as they would say, lower Kamit and upper Kamit. Upper Kamit was the south, or is the south. Lower Kamit is the north. Wachet governs the northern part of Kamit, lower Kamit. Nekhebet governs southern Kamit. So she has, her symbol is the southern flower, which is the Shema, the Nekheb, the fully flowered lotus, the blue lotus, and so forth. And then Wachet, or Yah, has the northern plant, the watch, the green one, the papyrus, and so forth. When those two plants are tied around, united around the trachea symbol with the lungs at the bottom, you have the plant life, which releases, oxygen, and that represents the oxygen. But that plant life connected to the trachea and lung symbol also represents the bronchial tubes, which is like the plant life within your lungs, which governs the intake and release of the oxygen within your body. So when you see those two plants united, you're seeing Wachet and Nekhebet, Yah and Aaba, united around the trachea, which is connected to the heart. So you still have, again, Yah, Aaba, and Yah. Wachet, Nekhebet, and Heru. Oya, Oba, and Shango. Or Avejida, Ayaba, and Hevioso. You have that same complex. Okay, before we go forward, let me see. Anybody have any questions so far on that? Okay, let me check one thing right here right quick. Okay. Wait a minute, hold on one second. Okay, it's back up. All right. Okay, so any questions on that so far? All right, so we have Yah and Aaba. We also said they are protectors, divine protectresses of royal sovereignty. So in the titulary, or the titles of the Per'ah, of the king, as well as the queen mother, the Henut, you have 5 basic titles. One of the titles is the Nebti title. The Nebti, so you have 5 different strong names or titles for the king or the queen mother. One of them is the Nebti, which is also always part of one of the strong names or the sacred names of the sovereign. Nebti, Neb means, Neb, male means all or every, but it also means master or chief, and so forth. Nebet means all or every, that's a feminine version of it, but it also means master, mistress, chieftainess, and so forth. So the Nebti, or Nebeti, means the two T Nebet, or mistresses, masters, female masters, chieftainesses. So the Nebti title means the chieftainesses of the two lands. This means that the only way someone can be a legitimate sovereign of ancient Kemet, they have to have a title that reflects the fact that they are governed by Wachet and Nekhebet. They have to have a Nebti name, because Nekhebet governs southern Kemet and Wachet governs northern Kemet. They govern the two lands, as well as Kemet and Kanit. So when we're talking about sovereignty, we're talking about two goddesses, two Abosom, two female Abosom, that if you're not in alignment with them, then you cannot rule over northern and southern Kamit. Now, of course, it also has to do with spirituality. It also has to do with the expansion and contraction of your life force energy and different things like that. But as a dealing with just the nation itself, the polity, northern and southern Kamit were governed by these two Abosom. Now, in the north, where most of the invasions came from, they typically came from the north into the Nile Valley, into the Happy Valley. Wachet governs the north. She wears the red crown, and she governs the north, and that's the, expansive, centrifugal, electric energy that attacks and defends external affairs. Then you have Nekhebet, who governs the south. She wears the white crown, and that governs the magnetic, centripetal, internal consuming energy that governs domestic affairs. With the combination of the two, of course, you have the protection of the sovereignty of the two lands, external affairs and internal affairs. Now, Nekhebet, one of the titles, Nek, Nekah, Neket, Nekhebet, that means guardian, it means resistance, it means protectress, and so forth. As Aaba, you will find, and as well as in the phone tradition, Ayaba, as well as in the Yoruba tradition, you will find that Oba in Yoruba, Ayaba in phone, as well as Nekhebet or Aaba and Akan in ancient Kamit, governs the home front, governs they say Ayaba is the voodoo of the home and the hearth. And the hearth is, where the food is prepared, and it's the centrality of the home. In the Yoruba tradition, they'll say Oba is the Orisha that governs the home and the hearth. But she's also a protectress. She also learned fighting techniques from Ogun and taught them to Oya and Shango. Then you also find Nekhebet. She governs the home front, domestic affairs. She wears the white crown, which represents Upper Kamit, and the domestic affairs. She's a protectress of the sovereignty of the home and the hearth. So it's the same divinity across the board. I think I saw, let me see. Okay, you said, can you clarify the relationship, hold on one second, of the two water deities of the papyrus and blue lotus are complementary opposites, and then can their waters meet literally, physically in nature, spiritually and physically within us? Now, okay, you're talking about, I think you're talking about Hapi, which is the Abosom of the Nile River. So sometimes what you will see is you'll see Hapi, Muhap Met, Muhap Reset, or Hap Reset, Hap Met, the northern and the southern Nile divinity. So you'll see Hapi, the Nile divinity, male, as a twin divinity. So Hap Reset is Hapi of the south as he flows in the southern part of the country, and then Hap Met is Hapi of the north when he flows in the northern part of the country. And what you'll see is you'll see both of them, one is holding the plant of the south, and the other one is holding the plant of the north, and they're right on both sides of the symbol we were just talking about, the Smayatawi symbol. And the symbol, of course, as I said before, is the trachea with the lungs, and then the two plants of Nekhebet and Wachet. But then in this depiction, you also have Hapi Reset and Hapi Met holding the two plants. One is holding the southern plant, one is holding the northern plant as they're being tied together. And it's showing a connection between Wachet and Nekhebet, and then Hapi Reset, and, well, Hapi Met and Hapi Reset. This is why very often they will say Hap Reset, or Hapi of the south, the male northern Nile divinity, is also the husband of Nekhebet, because she governs the south. And they'll say Hapi Met, or Hapi, the northern Nile twin divinity, is the husband of Wachet, because she governs the north. And there's a connection between the sovereignty that's represented by Wachet and Nekhebet, as we said before, but then Hapi governs the entire length of the country, north and south. The economy of the country was totally dependent on the rising of Hapi every year, because it very rarely rained in ancient Kamit. So their economy was totally dependent, and the sustenance of the society was dependent upon whether or not Hapi would expand and swell and rise and make the country fertile so that people could plant their crops and have abundance and so forth. And because of course if if Hapi didn't rise, and if they didn't have stores of goods and food and so forth, that was not only a problem with regard to famine, but that's also an issue of national security, because the whites and their offspring were always trying to invade ancient Kamit. And if there was an angle that they could get in, if the people were weak, people were famished, there was famine in the land, that was an opportunity for people to wage war and attack. So Hapi, with regard to the economy, it also had a national security aspect to it. So that's the connection between the sovereignty of Wachet and Nekhebet and Hapi Reset and Hapi Met being husband and wife. Now you also have the rivers of blood within your body, which is Hapi Met, Hapi Reset. And as the rivers of blood, the veins and the arteries going into and coming out of the heart, and the heart is in the center. When we breathe in the air, the life force energy is in the air, in the electromagnetic force. When we take that in, it gets in the lungs, gets into the bronchial tubes, then the lung tissue, and the blood that's in the lung tissue, and then of course it stimulates the blood, stimulates that life force energy. Of course the iron in the blood carries the life force energy. So that entire complex of the lung-heart complex is affected directly with the rivers of blood that move throughout our bodies. So if your blood is not pure, if your diet is not clean, you don't want to of course be eating a lot of fried foods and different things like that. If your blood is not clean, then the life force energy that's circulating through the lungs that gets into the blood, that connection between Wachet and Nekhebet, Hapi Reset and Hapi Met, it will disrupt the economy of your body. And of course, if the economy of your body is disrupted, meaning you don't have enough nutrients because you're famished, you're starving yourself, you're malnourished, which means there's a famine in your land or in your body, then that becomes a national security problem, a national security issue. In your body, the national security is not only Abena and Bena, which is the immune system, the lymphatic system, but there's also that electromagnetic energy, your aura, as manifest through Wachet and Nekhebet. And just like your immune system, if you're weak and you don't have enough nutrients because the Hapi, the rivers of your body, are polluted, or they're just malnourished or deficient, then it becomes a national security issue. So you're weak, your immunity is compromised, but then spiritually, your aura becomes porous. And if you have a porous aura, then normally the kind of wayward spirits, earthbound spirits that attempt to control and pervert and destroy, that you normally can fend off without effort, without even thinking, you just repel them with just moving through everyday life, then those spirits will be able to get in and cause problems, cause mental problems, cause financial problems, relationship problems, because they affect the way you think, they disrupt the way you think, they lead you in different directions, and you thinking you're having your own thoughts, and you decide to move in one direction, in reality something else is going on. It's very similar to when your immune system is compromised, bacteria that normally just bounces off of you, or if you're in a room with somebody or you live with somebody who has a virus, if your immune system is strong, then you can live with them, you can go to sleep next to them, you can get up and do everything you're doing. They're coughing all day long and it just bounces right off of you because you can't be penetrated. But if your resistance is low, if your immunity is compromised, then that bacteria that normally can't affect you, now it can penetrate your defenses and compromise your national security, compromise your sovereignty, compromise your independence. And it's the same thing spiritually. If your aura becomes porous because you're out of alignment with Aaba, she governs the home front, that's centripetal energy. Remember, Wachet her energy is expansive, electric, explosive. So when she defends from foreign invasion, just like in northern Kamit, but also within your body, certain immune system cells, they destroy cancerous cells by obliterating them. But then you have Aaba, who has that internal magnetic centripetal force. It still destroys cancerous cells, but it destroys them in other wayward cells through consumption, like phagocytes that swallow those cells and destroy them and then expel the debris from the body. But if you don't, of course, if you don't have that, your national security, your body security is compromised, and then you have a problem. Your aura becomes porous, and now you can't, defend, you can't guard the home front. Aaba can't guard the home front, and now what happens is you begin to get infected mentally and spiritually by other people's projections. If your aura is porous, then the thoughts that people project towards you, they can penetrate your aura, and now they come into your mindset, and you're feeling like these thoughts are yours. Or somebody else's urges, somebody else's desires, somebody engaged in lower level witchcraft, so-called witchcraft, sending out emanations, sacrificing animals to send out weak little emanations, but they can get to you if your aura is porous. So what happens is, people have all kinds of problems. We talk about the dilemma with regard to people who are children of Aaba, children of Yah, Wachet, and Nekhebet. Some specific dilemmas with regard to people who get out of harmony with that energy. We mentioned things like bipolar disorder and so forth, because since they govern the female aspect of the electric and magnetic poles in the body because of the aura. Of course, you have the north and south pole, but then you have the eastern and western. If you're out of harmony with those poles, and you have out of harmony polar shifts, then your mindset, your focus can shift from one region to another region, from one thing to the next. You'll manifest what the whites and their offspring often call bipolar disorder, whether it's bipolar 1, bipolar 2, or different forms of what some people would consider psychosis, but very often it's not really psychosis. Your aura is porous, you're receiving information, energy, suggestions, projections from other entities, earthbound spirits, as well as other people who are trying to send you some bad energy, or just some people who are, just sending energy because they're distorted themselves. Even energy from television, music, teachers, or different things, it penetrates your aura and remains, it sticks because you haven't repelled it. And because you haven't been repelling it on a regular basis, it gets in you. It's very similar to, you can watch something, you can open yourself up consciously. You can sit down and watch television or fall asleep watching television or listening to the radio, and then you fall asleep and you have a dream about the characters that are actually on the radio. Okay, because you've been penetrated. You opened yourself up and then you fell asleep and you let your defenses down, and now you're dreaming about individuals or entities that you don't even like. You will repel or you listen to the radio and the same characters on the radio you're dreaming about now because you've been entered, so to speak. So all that to say, you can be open, you can lose your sovereignty, you can lose that protection that Wachet and Nekhebet, Yah and Aaba afford us when we're in harmony with their energy. And that's all connected with dietary practices, so you won't pollute the rivers of blood in your body, the Hapi within your body. But when Hapi, Reset, and Hapi met, the northern and southern Nile divinities are in harmony with Wachet and Nekhebet, then your blood is in harmony. Your wind, your electromagnetic energy is in harmony. Your aura is not porous, it's strong, it's vibrant, it's colorful, it's vivid, and it can repel disorder, and it would only receive the kind of vibrations that are positive that you need. Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, now that talking about that aspect of it, dealing with the dietary practices, and we kind of touched on this before. Sometimes people have had questions about dietary practices. What's most important? Should people be vegan? Should they be vegetarian? Things like that. What does it have to do with spirituality? And you know, this is directly related because all food, just like everything, gives off an electromagnetic vibration. The food has an aura and a Nekhebet that is governed by, you know, if you have natural food, naturally occurring plant life, or you know, mineral life and so forth, everything that's naturally occurring, that's created entities, are connected to Wachet and Nekhebet, connected to Yah and Aaba. Okay, Yeni Aseda. So so that's a very important thing. So we're connected to Abosom through our blood, through our, you know, descent. We're connected to NANASOM and Samanfo. So we have people in our blood circle, based on our true story, the things that we have gone through over hundreds of years, thousands of years, migrations, being connected to certain groups and reincarnating through these specific groups. All the experiences that we have had for thousands of years, our particular group, we can trace it back to, you know, what we were doing thousands of years ago. In our group, we reincarnated through a certain ancestral blood circle. So all the experiences that we've had migrating to mountainous regions, riverine areas, you know, near the ocean or wherever we have gone, we've incorporated the foods that we've eaten in these different areas, the kind of mineral life that we encountered, animal life we've encountered, plant life, and so forth. We've incorporated these things when we've eaten, that went into the makeup of our bodies. So those kinds of things determine what kind of taboos, what kind of echiwadye, what kind of dietary taboos that will be prevalent and manifest in our particular blood circle. So those are certain things, there are certain foods that we would have to stay away from because of our physiological makeup, because of where we have gone, what we have done, who we're descended from, and so forth. There are also spiritual echiwadye, spiritual taboos, social taboos, things that divine restrictions or prohibitions that are sanctioned by the Abosom. You may be, you know, connected to a fiery Abosom, and there are certain animals or certain different things that you don't need to engage in, so you won't get out of harmony with, you know, the energy. Now, on a lower level, basic, you know, echiwadi or taboo, like we mentioned before, are certain allergens. Like certain things that are allergens for you may not be allergens for somebody else. Even somebody else in your own family, even your brother or your sister or your child or your parent. You may be allergic, nobody else in the family is allergic. Or there may be certain things that you are allergic to and most of the people in your family are allergic to. That's the manifestation on a low level of an echiwadye or a taboo, something that's divinely hated. Chi means to hate, adye means thing or object or deed or entity. So echiwadye is divinely hated or restricted thing, prohibited thing, object, deed, or entity. So, you know, we have on the lower level, allergens are an indication very often of an echiwadye. But then you have spiritual taboos, certain things that will place you, just like you can eat certain foods that will make you sick because you're allergic. There are certain activities you can engage in or certain entities that you can interact with that will create disturbance within your life force energy, a disturbance within your, you know, ability to operate in a harmonious fashion. So we learn those things directly from our Samanfo. We learn those things from the Abosom, because we're in a condition here where most of our relatives are not involved in ancestral culture and don't have that connection. Then we have to spend most of our time getting that kind of information instead of from our Mpanyinfo, from our elders and elderesses, like we would normally do in a traditional normal setting. Since most of our Mpanyinfo are, you know, engaged in Christianity or Islam or something like that, then we get more of our information from the Nsamanfo, from the NANASOM Nsamanfo, than we normally would, which is not a bad thing because we get the information that's uncut and pure, and then, like I said earlier, they direct us to information that proves what they're saying, so we can reestablish the culture on a firm footing that's cosmologically sound. So same thing with regard to diet. There are different things for different people. Everybody's not going to eat the same thing. I'm a vegetarian, I'm a vegan, I've been that for a number of years. There are some people, you know, who will engage in that process. There are some people who won't. It's not a situation where if you eat some meat, then you won't be spiritual because your electromagnetic energy won't function properly. It just depends on the person. Now, of course, there are certain things that none of us should be consuming. There are a lot of things that have hormones, and there are a number of different things that the whites and their offspring are polluting the not only the animals with, but the soil, the plant life, all kinds of things, the atmosphere, everything. The whites and their offspring are spirits of disorder. They are Odwirafo. They are spiritually hated by the Abosom, hated by the NANASOM and Samafo. They are taboo, all of them, men, women, children, those who exist now, those who have existed in the past, those who are yet to be born until they become extinct. All of them, the whites and their offspring, all of the non-Afurakanu, non-Afurakaitnu, are Odwirafo, spirits of disorder, taboo for us. And of course, they manifest that through the things that they do. So, whether it's plant life, animal life, mineral life, and any aspect of the world, the planet, the atmosphere, they pollute these things, and there are certain things that we just shouldn't be consuming, just period. But beyond that, you have to learn directly from your NANASOM and Samafo. When you establish your Nkron, your ancestral shrine, or the shrine for your Akradinbosom and your Kra, that's part of the process. That is your institution to establish, so that you can begin to learn from the NANASOM and Samafo, learn from your Kra, learn from the Abosom who are connected to you, and then you'll find out, you'll rediscover what the taboos, the Odwirafo, are for your family, your own dietary taboos, your own social taboos, your own ritual taboos. But then you will also discover what, social taboos and ritual taboos and so forth, dietary, that we have to establish since we've been here, new Odwirafo that we didn't have before we were forced to migrate here. Because just like we developed new taboos or Odwirafo, certain restrictions or prohibitions when we moved from the eastern part of the continent to the north and west and central, once we migrated over here into a different terrain, there are certain things we need to stay away from, and we have to learn that. And we have to incorporate that into our culture and codify that, and then transmit it to our progeny so that we can stay in harmony with divine order. So it's not a situation where you just pick a certain practice or a certain set of foods and then everybody, that's all they eat, and everybody's on the same page, because people are different. There are certain major categories that we can fit in, of course, fruits and vegetables, certain kinds of whole real grains, not hybrids and things like that. Those things are good for most of us, but even within those things, there are certain fruits that are good for certain people, certain fruits are taboo for people. Certain vegetables are good for people, certain vegetables people can't deal with, or they don't need to consume those. We don't need to consume a very large variety of foods. There are certain, our diets can be rather simple, but as long as you're connecting with your Kra, with the Abosom and Samafo connected with you, they will guide you to the kinds of things you need to consume that are good for your electromagnetic energy, that won't put you out of harmony with Aaba and Ya, and then they will, direct you away from things that will, distort that energy for you. Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, I think I saw. Okay. All right. So now we had a situation. I know some. Hold on. Let me see. Oh yeah. So sister mentioned that water is especially polluted with the unnecessary toxins. So yes, that's the other piece. And you mentioned previously about the water, and we talked about Hapi Reset and Hapi Met in connection with Wachet and Nekhebet. But yes, the water that's critical because, you know, growing up, a lot of us, it wasn't a thing where we were drinking bottled water. That wasn't, we weren't doing that. It's become kind of popular and just standard now, but even many of our people still, they'll drink, regular tap water in the city or in a rural setting. Very often in the cities, well, we would suggest you never drink any tap water ever, period. Especially in the urban areas where they, make sure that the water moving into the areas where you have large black populations have more toxins in them, have more fecal matter in them, and so forth. You can smell the water as it's coming out the faucet. That you know what they're doing. So people, some people understand that, and they say, well, I never drink tap water. We would suggest, whether it's spring water or distilled water, or whatever it is, never to consume that. But when you have water that's perverse, water that's toxic, that directly not only affects your physical body but your spiritual body. And the reason why is water is a conductor of electromagnetic energy. We know that through water is connected with certain batteries and things like that. So it's a conductor of electromagnetic energy. And if it's toxic, then not only are their vibrations weak and so forth, but when you're weak like that, then again, that opens you up and makes your aura porous, and that allows you to receive, water is receptive, allows you to receive the projections, the communications from earthbound wayward spirits who have not made a transition to Asamaindo, or the ancestral realm, or of course some of those Achiwadifo, those whites and their offspring, those spirits who would never be able or allowed to move into the ancestral realm in the first place. And those are the kind of entities, those are the kind of spirits that we often get plagued with and cause our people to engage in insane self-destructive behavior, insane rationalizations for the kinds of behavior that they embrace, insane rationalizations for pseudo-spiritual practices like Christianity and Islam and Moorishism and pseudoscience and Nuwabianism and all kinds of different things. When you get plagued, and because you have a porous aura or kahibit, because you're out of harmony with Wachet and Nekhebet, then all kinds of entities can invade, and that affects the consciousness and perception of the person. Okay, I see you said chlorides and fluoride and phosphates, distilled water isn't good either over long periods. Yeah, it depends on, what you have to try to get the most pure, water from the purest sources that you can find. There are some, for example, they found that Aquafina, which, they were selling billions of, units of Aquafina for years, and it turns out that Aquafina, which was just regular tap water, and they were just bottling basically tap water. And people for years were thinking that this was, clean, clear spring water. Now, some people, we had noticed a long time ago that Aquafina tasted different from the other bottled water, so we just stopped buying it. And then years later, we found out, it was a big scandal, and they had to come up forward and admit that they were just selling people tap water. So even with the distilled water, or the stuff that's dealing with reverse osmosis and different things like that, you're going to have to try to find different brands that are closer to a pure source as possible to consume that. Somebody else has something. I think I saw. Right, that sister mentioned it did have a funny taste, and some people had picked up on that early on. So again, and that's part of it is being in tune with your body. When we talk about Wachet and Nekhebet operating through these two poles that pull in the energy, the electromagnetic energy here and stimulate the lungs. And once you're breathing and expanding and contracting, that directly affects the expansion and contraction and the vibrancy of your aura. But it also goes to, and you'll see text in Kamit talking about the temples, and Wachet and Nekhebet rise up on the right side and the left side of the head at the region of the temples, and dealing with intuition. They're connected with the eye. So you'll see in the article we talk about the eye of Heru, the eye of Ra, eye of Tahuti, and so forth. When you see the planet Yao, the great red spot that's always talked about in astronomy that's found on the planet Yao is in the same shape of the eye of Heru. And what you'll see in the depictions of ancient Kemet is you'll find Wachet and Nekhebet flanking both sides of the eye. So the eye of Heru, and then you have Wachet and Nekhebet, the divine protectresses of royal sovereignty. So, and then we show that picture, and then we show a picture of the full body divinities of Wachet and Nekhebet, with the king sitting in between them and then protecting him, and he's the eye. He represents Heru at that point. And so again, you have Wachet, Nekhebet, and Heru. What you'll also find is Aaba. She's depicted as a vulture, but sometimes, and we have a picture of her as a vulture, and she has a rod, ba, which means rod or staff or stick. And at the end of the stick, the staff, the ba, is an ankh, and she's placing it at the nose of the Ptah of the pharaoh when he's in battle. So she is attendant to the king in battle. Again, she's a protectress of royal sovereignty, protectress, a guardian of southern Kemet, guardian of the home front, and so forth. Sometimes they show her as the vulture, but sometimes they show her as a vulture, but instead of having the face and head of the vulture, there are the two wings, but then in the middle of the body portion, instead of having the head, is that big eye again. So she's represented by that eye, which is dealing with, the so-called third eye, the so-called intuition, or the ability to tune in, to see beyond the physical, that clairvoyant ability. Now, also you'll find that Aaba's planet, Neptune, just like Ya or Yao, the planet Yao, Jupiter, has a symbol of an eye in the planet. Astronomically, when you look at the planet Aaba, Neptune, it has a similar shape that they call the great spot or the great eye of Neptune. And that's the same eye that you'll see in the body of Aaba as a vulture. Sometimes they just show her as the eye with wings that's protecting the king or the queen mother. And that's talking about the electromagnetic energy when it reaches that point of the Kar. And of course, that's the origin of the term chakra, and we have an article about that. But in that region, that intuition that you're able to tune in to other people's projections. Remember, we said the eye has two primary function and a secondary function. The primary function is to see, which means you're receiving light and you're able to perceive. But then the secondary function is to project, and you can project electromagnetic energy not just from your two eyes, but you can project from the middle, from the third eye. So she governs that process as well. All right. Okay, so any other questions about with regard to Aaba and her different functions? So basically, just to recap for her, she operates through the planet Aaba, which is called, let me see. Oh, okay, sister said, lotus plants grows in muddy and ugly waters. Does that mean anything as it would apply to our body? Well, actually, the lotus has its roots in, hold on one second. Okay, no, it has its roots in the earth, of course, and then the stems and some of the leaves are in the water, and then it opens up in the air, and then on the inside, it's the blue lotus, has the yellow flowers that are very often representative of the Aten of the sun. So when they talk about the cosmology of ancient Kamit, and before there was anything created, there was a mass of blackness and the great divine sacred waters of Nu and Nut, and Ra and Ra'et rose up from those sacred waters, and sometimes they'll say they rose up out of a lotus, and when the lotus opened up, then the sun, the Aten, rose up out of the lotus, and that was the light had shone for the first time, separating the darkness. Then of course Ra and Ra'et began to move through that black darkness and separated into various forms, including the sphere that became Asase Afuya, the planet Earth, and their energy moved through that sphere and separated, the heaviness and denser portions from the lighter portions, and the Earth began to develop. But it's the same thing with respect to Aaba. So the roots are in deep within the earth, the stem and some of the flowers are in the water, the flowers are in the air, and then when it opens up, it takes in the sunlight. And that's the same thing with respect to our bodies. We're connected through the earth, of course, the four basic elements, the Asase, the Oja, which is the fire, the Mframa, which is the air, and the Nsio, which is the water. Those are the Akan terms for those different things. But when we're talking about those different things, they have to be in balance. So if you don't have enough earth, if you don't have enough minerals, nutrients, you won't have enough strength, you won't be strong, you'll be weak. If you don't have enough water, you won't be receptive. If you don't have enough fire, you won't be able to repel what you need to repel. If you don't have enough air, oxygen and frama, you won't be intuitive enough. So, you have it doesn't have anything to do necessarily with the way it shows up in nature as far as ugly in that sense. Everything is connected. The muddy water is very important because it has nutrients. It's unformed at that point, but it can take different forms, take different shapes. We need to be like that with respect to our intuition. We need to be open enough and unformed enough when the Abosom give us information, when the Nsamafo give us information, when we get direction from our Kra. We don't need to be so rigid in conditionings, false conditionings, and when we get information, proper information, that we can't receive it because we've already formed our perception based on false conditioning. It does not mean that you need to be open to everything. The only thing you need to be open to is what's true and what's correct, and we need to repel with the fire and with the air, but with the fire we need to repel the foolishness. But every level, every aspect of nature that's seen with respect to the lotus, whether it's the water, the mud, and everything else, everything has resonance within our bodies. Everything has value within us. Now there's also another piece with regard, when we first started talking about the Akradinbosom, and we were talking about the 7 basic Abosom, Awusi, Ajwa, Bena, Awuku, Ya, Afi, and Amen, Men, Sunday, Kwesi Da through Memenada through Saturday. And we talked about how because of the infection of the culture, you'll find that many people on one hand don't even know that the Abosom of 7 days exists. They don't know that they're governed by the sun, moon, and those 5 planets, but actually 7 planets. They don't know that the deities are real, but then we also showed that once we deal with the actual divinities themselves, they'll give us the information, which they have done that, and they also guided us along with the Nsamafo to the information in ancient Kamit to show the exact same divinities with the exact same names, with the same functions in nature, and which govern the same aspects of our being and the universe. It shows that there are 11 Akradinbosom. Now, once we found that out, of course, we published that, and people have been dealing with these Abosom so they can learn directly from them, and of course that's been fine. But also, sometimes they give you more information as a confirmation. So there's a story that we listed on the Akradinbosom page, and it talks about how it's a story from Asante, one of the Akan groups, how the Abosom came into the world. And it's just a basic story about a child called Duku, which means number 11, and his various experiences with him and his 10 siblings. And at the end of the story, it talks about them going to the realm of Owuo, meaning death, and Awuaba, which is female death, and Owuo Bedema, which is male death, was trying to capture the child and his 11 siblings. And at the end of the day, they overcame a number of challenges, and they became, that's how the Abosom, they became the Abosom, that's how the Abosom came into the world. And it references these 11 children later becoming the 11 Abosom. Now, that's just a direct reference and relationship to the sacred number of 11 connected to the Akradinbosom. But the 11 is not the only sacred number. All of the numbers are sacred. There are the 8 Abosom of Kemenu. There are the 9 Abosom of Anu. There are 42 Abosom who are assessors of Ma'at. There are the 4 children of Heru. There are a number of different collections of Abosom, and each one of them have their own relevance. Each one of them have their own function, just like different organs and organ systems within your body have their own sets of organs. They have their own functions. It's the same thing in the great divine body of Inyame wa Inyame, or Amenet and Amen. They have different organs, which are the divinities, and organ systems that work together. And those organ systems have their own groups of organs, their own functions within the great divine body, and it's the same process. So it's not just a, you know, these are the 10 major divinities or 11 major divinities or anything like the, you know, the pseudo metaphysical, kabbalistical misinformation. Different groups of divinities have different functions, and all of the groups are harmonious and connected. So we just wanted to put that out there. But that information, let me put this on the link. The Akradinbosom page, because the Akradinbosom page has all of the articles for Awusi and Adwa, and you know, Benan, Abanan, Aku and Awuku, Yao Yan, Aba, Fi, and Amen Man. But before you get to those articles, there's an introductory portion that goes into detail about the nature and function of what Akradinbosom are, and we go into detail about some of these things, and we also have a link to that story about how the Abosom came into the world. Let me just put that up there so you can check that out if you haven't downloaded it already. And we're going to go into some more details about that as well. How the Abosom came into the world. Hold on. Okay, so there's a link to that story on the Akradinbosom page. Okay. Okay, so you said, so is that why the lotus plant is at the end of the bulb that contains the serpent at the temple of Dendera? Now, I don't know which one, because there are, in the temple of Dendera, there are so many Abosom. I don't know if you're talking about the temple of Het Heru at Dendera, but the lotus with the bulb, that is the southern plant. So that's the one connected to Nekhebet, because the papyrus plant, the watch plant, is the top is just smooth, but then the Nekhebet plant is open, but then it has a bulb in the center, and that's how you know typically that's the southern plant of Upper Kamit. Okay. Okay, I just wanted to see. All right. I thought I missed something. I thought I missed a question. Oh, no, you said, okay, speaking of planets, what do you attribute to the huge asteroid that will come close to Earth? That I haven't checked out yet. I hadn't heard about it too much, so I hadn't really looked into it. I mean, if it's, if it's a real thing, because, very often the whites and their offspring will put things out there just to, create some kind of misinformation campaign, or talk about, a fictional character, Jesus is coming back, or this is a sign, or some foolishness like that. But if it's a real thing, if it's a real asteroid coming close to the planet, just on a basic level, it will have an effect upon the magnetosphere of the planet, depending on how large it is. And if anything that has an effect on the magnetosphere of Asase Afuya is going to have an effect on the magnetosphere of us, which is the aura, which is the Kahibit, which is the domain of Wachet and Nekhebet, but it's not a determinant of behavior. So a lot of these things, with respect to whether it's asteroids or just, astrology in general, there are influences that we have. Just like if you go outside and it's hot outside, then it affects your life force energy, and it can affect you in a certain direction. It's not a determinant of your behavior, a determinant of your action, but it has an influence. And that's when the Aten, which is very close to us, and the different planets, the Aten, of course, is the strongest and most powerful entity within our solar system, most powerful thing closest to us, period. So it can have an influence, but it's not a determinative of our behavior. Then, of course, stars and other planets that are weaker, or stars that are much farther away, they can have an influence physiologically upon a direction that we may be contemplating or moving in, but they're not a determinant of the behavior. But beyond that, really, those planets and stars and so forth, those celestial bodies, the only real connection we have beyond just a basic electromagnetic connection, if we're connected to the Abosom who embody those different celestial bodies, like, of course, Ya and Aabada and the different ones, then we have, a different kind of connection. But still, they're not determinants of our behavior. They give us energy. They give us the knowledge of how to open and close the energy that we receive from them. They give us direction and guidance, but we still have to make the decision. We still have to operate according to, we should be operating according to what our Akra is directing us to do. So we just wanted to put that out there. But I haven't checked out the asteroid thing yet, but at most it would have a minimal effect upon the life force energy of us. Okay, and somebody asked, is Wachet and Nekhebet the energy similar to energy used in cell phones and other machines we use today? Their basic residual energy of Wachet and Nekhebet is just electromagnetic energy. So they utilize the electromagnetic force operating through the aura, through the Kahibit, to communicate with. Just like an Abosom, if you're at a ritual, or you've seen a ritual, and you see an Abosom possess someone, a person may be dancing, or they might just be standing there or singing or not doing anything. It just might be at the ritual. And then an Abosom in Orisha of Odu possesses and gets inside of them, begins to move, maybe begins to dance, communicate with somebody, heal somebody, or whatever. The Abosom is using the person's physical body to communicate with other people in the human sphere, meaning the Afurakaitni human sphere, because of course the Abosom, the Avodu, the Orisha, and so forth, do not communicate with the whites and their offspring at all. Never have and never will. So just like they can get in your physical body and use that as a vehicle of expression for themselves when they're trying to communicate with you physically, they can also utilize the magnetosphere of the Earth Mother, which they do, to communicate with us, plant life, animal life, and mineral life, and so forth. They're not inherent in a cell phone. They operate through the magnetosphere. Just like you have an Abosom who can operate through the ocean, that doesn't mean if somebody just gets a glass of water from the ocean, then the Abosom is there, especially the whites and the offspring. The Abosom utilize that as a vehicle, but they're not bound, by any use of that particular force. Only time they need to communicate, if they want to communicate with somebody, they will communicate directly with us. If they need to possess, and our cry is in harmony with that because that's something that needs to happen, then they possess. But just to make it clear, when people are using cell phones and things like that, they're using electromagnetic energy. They're sending satellites up. It's using the ionosphere very often, transmitting those signals back and forth, the radio signals and things like that. So they do utilize, and that's all encompassed within the magnetosphere, because the ionosphere is a lower level. The magnetosphere expands beyond the body of the Earth Mother, and the atmosphere expands out into space. So it's much further beyond. The ionosphere is a lower level layer of the atmosphere. So that's where most of the cell phone technology and everything is connecting. It's near that ionosphere, thermosphere level. But electromagnetic energy in and of itself, that residual energy from that is, yes, it's being used by the Wachet and Nekhebet. So, radiation, things like that, that's something we have to be, we have to take into consideration when we're using electronic devices, electromagnetic devices, things like that. Okay, so did that answer your question? Because it is, the residual energy of the magnetosphere is connected, from it's kind of like, and the distinction I want to make is, just because electromagnetic energy is connected to the Abosom, it doesn't mean that every time electromagnetic energy is utilized that the Abosom is sanctioning it or they're present. So, for example, if you put on some cologne, or if a female puts on some, body oils, like myrrh or something, or frankincense, and they get in an elevator, and then they get off on the 10th floor and they leave, and then the elevator goes up to, the 14th floor, and somebody gets on, they can still smell the residual scent that was left by you when you got off the elevator. You're not present, but that residual energy is still there, and they can experience it. So it's the same thing with electromagnetic energy. Wachet and Nekhebet utilize the electromagnetic energy of the magnetosphere that surrounds the Earth to communicate with us and operate through, but there's residual energy that emanates from that every time it's used, like with a cell phone or something else, that doesn't mean that the Abosom are, communicating through that particular device. That's just a residual projection left over from the magnetosphere. All right, so any other questions dealing with Ya and Aaba? Okay, so of course the article for Ya and Aaba and all the other ones are on the website. You can go into that. The next session we're going to be dealing with Afi. Afi is called Het Heru in ancient Kamit. She's called Afi as well as Cheche, which is Het or Het Heru in Kamit, Cheche and Akan. She's called Oshun in the Yoruba tradition, titled Azili in the Vodun tradition. So we'll be talking about her next week. If you have any questions, check out, well, you can email us. You can also, if you're not on our forum, we have a forum, a network, afroikai.ning.com. And post that right there. And we also have, you can send us an email, and I'll post the email up. And we also have our, so the email is aquamumine at Odwirafo.com. And also put their AKANFO NANASOM, which is the AKANFO NANASOM group on Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, or if you are on Facebook, if you're not, if you do get on, you can see that we have a group. Okay, so one more question the brother asked: how can we better protect our own electromagnetic field? On one hand, well, first thing, you need to get enough sleep. Now, sleep is different for, some people need more, some people need less. It's not a cookie cutter type thing, but whatever amount that's, necessary for you, you need to get enough sleep. You need to regenerate yourself. You need to return to the waters of Nu and Nut at night and get regenerated, just like Ra and Ra'et rose up out of the waters of Nu and Nut in the beginning. The life force energy, the fiery radiant energy that exploded from that darkness came up out of Nu and Nut because they, made Ra and Ra'et active. We return to that watery energy at night to get recharged. So that's the first thing. Sleep. Then dietary practices are important. We talked a little bit about dietary practices. Just staying away from those foods that are echiwadye for you. And you're going to have to learn some of that. Some of it is just going to be intuitive. The more you sit with your Kra and communicate with your Kra, the more you sit with your Nsamanfo on a regular basis. When you go in the grocery store, when you're going out to eat, or whatever it is, you will be urged away from certain foods, and you will be okay when you reach out for certain fruits, vegetables, different things like that. So sleep is important for rejuvenation, and reorientation and recalibration. Diet is important. Exercise is important. As you're exercising, you're taking in the life force energy, it's moving through your lungs, and it's moving through your whole Kahibit, which of course is the domain of Wachet and Nekhebet. So you're taking in that fiery energy in large volumes beyond what you would normally do throughout the course of the day, just breathing at a regular pace. You're taking in this fire. It's helping to burn up toxins. It's helping to focus you. Sometimes if you have energy blockages, that can become roadblocks spiritually. Just like if you have a physical blockage, then that can cause you problems physiologically. But if you have like constipation or something like that, but if you have a spiritual blockage, like a conditioning, sometimes the fire that you generate through exercise, it translates into energy that you utilize to move through some conditioning, some temporary or artificial roadblock that's been put in the pathway by somebody who told you something you remember, something you were conditioned with, or whatever. Sometimes the fire is enough to explode through that and obliterate that, or consume that through Wachet and Nekhebet, and then your intuition opens up, and you're like, damn, what was I thinking about that for? It helps you to move right through it. It destroys it. But beyond that, just exercise is cleansing your body, keeping you focused, allowing you to exercise your will because you're not trapped by certain conditionings. You're stimulating physiologically the sanctuaries of Wachet and Nekhebet, and since they govern upper and lower Kamit, they govern your sovereignty. They're the protectresses of royal sovereignty. For you individually, your sovereignty is your independence of thought, independence of action. So if you're not, independently thinking, you're controlled by conditionings, your sovereignty has been compromised. When you deal with the energy that governs them through exercise, sleep, diet, exercise, then you tap into your own individual independence, taking control of your decision-making process and so forth. So that's the next thing. Then ritual practice is next. Meditation, susuhon is what we call it in Akan culture, which is tuning in and reflecting and contemplating, sitting with your Kra, sitting with the NANASOM and Samanfo, sitting with the Abosom that are connected to you by blood. Those ritual practices help you to strengthen your aura because you're recalibrating, realigning with the Abosom, getting information from the Nsamafo, being open to that, listening to your cry, and living in harmony with order. Aligning yourself with order and realigning yourself with order on a regular basis is the #1 means by which you gain protection, because as long as you're in harmony with order, then you can repel disorder. If you get out of harmony with order, get disaligned from order, then that's when you fall into, situations where you can be assaulted by disordered entities or situations and so forth. So that's sleep, diet, exercise, meditation, or ritual practice, evoking the Nsamafo, invoking the Abosom, study, not just reading books, but observation, reflection, tuning into different things. Study is when you're studying things and you're refining the things that you internalize and living in harmony with order, then that allows you to expand your sphere of influence, because you're harmonious now. You're not just being controlled by other things that we're bombarded with on a regular basis. We get bombarded with things from billboards, television, the internet, other people's ideas, work, school, whatever it is. You get bombarded with these things. In order to maintain your sovereignty, you need to be able to repel the things that you don't need to receive, and you need to be able to receive things that are harmonious. So, sleep, diet, exercise, ritual practice. In fact, we have a piece in the Ptah Sasatim that kind of goes into detail about those things. Let me put that up there. You can download the Ptah Sasatim book on the Odwirafo site, and it goes into detail about like 7 different aspects of Asedye, which is responsibility, and it includes those things that we were just talking about. Okay. Hold on one second. Now the brother asked if it was best to pray 3 times a day. Is that the best way to rely on oneself? So now it's just different with different people. So the pact that you enter into with your Nsamafo, whether it's once a day with them, or once in the evening, or every other day, or certain days of the week, whatever the pact you enter into with them, then just keep that pact, whatever it is, whatever is best for you and for them. Same thing with your cry. It depends. You may sit with your Akradin Abosom shrine, or sit at with a shrine that's set aside for your cry. And for those who are unfamiliar, if you look at the first 3 videos we did, NANASOM, Ne, Amamre, parts 1, 2, and 3. In the first one, we talked about the Akra, the Okrawa, the Khan, the Kayet, in connection with the Abosom and Nsamafo and the Supreme Being, the cosmology. We talked about that. And then the second one, part 2, we dealt with the Nsamafo, the ancestresses and ancestors. And then the third one, we dealt with the Abosom. And then we started going through the different Abosom of the days of the week. So if you look at part 1, we deal with the Akra and the Akradin Abosom and so forth. So when we're talking about the Kra, you can get some more information about that. But you may sit with the Kra at the shrine, in the morning and in the evening, or it might just be one time a day. It just depends on, you have to establish that based on your Nsamafo, Abosom connected to you, and how you feel your Kra is leading you, and just move in that direction, and just make sure you keep it consistent. The more consistency you have, the more information you'll receive. You'll be able to internalize, and you'll be able to verify, because you're constantly receiving information and then going out and living the process, and then you get confirmation through the course of everyday life. Okay, so it's about 9. It's almost 9 o'clock, so we're gonna leave it there. If you have any other questions, Send us an email. Hit us up on the afuraka.nang.com site or Facebook on the AKANFO. You can join the AKANFO NANASOM group on Facebook. We will be posting this video like we do all the videos on our YouTube site. So we have all of them up there now. We have all 8 Akradinbosom, plus we have the 3 NANASOM Ne Amamre, plus a couple of others, Ma'akeru videos. And let me, and then also you can check out our, this is the last one, the Nkwamua website, where we have our Nkwamua Whole Life Journal. So if you want to support the organization, support what we do, you can go to the Nkwamua site. You can download the journal ebook, as well as there's also a hard copy version. Well, it's a soft cover version that you can order as well if you want a soft cover version, or you can just order and download the ebook instantly on the nkwamua.com site. It's the Nkwamua Whole Life Journal. So we talk about some health information, cultural information, spiritual, behavioral type information. So we go into detail about that, and you can see all that on the site. So may I say thank you for coming out to check out this presentation, and we will be back next Benada. We will be dealing with Afi. So check out the article on Afi. In fact, you want to check out both of them. Check out the article on Afi and on Amen Men, which is the Obosom who govern Fida and Memenada Friday and Saturday, but they're connected. We're going to talk about Afi next week, and the week after that we'll talk about Amen Man, but it's going to be overlapping because in certain respects they are husband and wife, and there are certain things that overlap with them. And we'll be bringing out some new information because we're going to expand the articles on those two just to add a couple of more things, but we'll bring that into the conversation next week. So okay, well okay, so we appreciate you coming out, may I say, and we will see you in the next session next week. That's it.